Special Education Binder for Catherine Slater. Here's the table of contents. We begin with the Special Education in Montana. We move to common terminology and abbreviations in special education. Till they become second nature to me, I need a list to remind me what some of these abbreviations are. There are a lot. Evaluation and IEP timeline. So this is a sample of my timeline from my assessment plan. It can be referred back to as I move forward. It was great to kind of see how those things played out because not everything goes as planned, and so sometimes you have to make adjustments to that. So it's a good thing to lay out. Procedural safeguards. Every family gets this every year. Should be an on-hand thing so that you can hand it right over to families. Best practices and safeguards in special education. So I found an article about best practices for IEP meetings to help out with that. Assessments. Here's just a sample assessment. In it I have notes, things that worked, things that were helpful when doing an assessment, and things to watch for, because it's really hard to not tell them what to do. Writing, PLAFs, MAGs, and STOTs. So here's some articles just to help guide who writing PLAFs, MAGs, and STOTs. Data collection, which is a huge part. You need to make sure that you're collecting data so that you can check through to make sure you're staying on track with your IEPs, with your goals, and also for Medicaid billing and information. They have you make sure that you have notes and things like that. So scheduling, planning in special education classroom. This was a huge thing. This is something I think about constantly through the year. One of the big things in this is not only scheduling your students' schedules, but also your own. You need to make sure you leave yourself time for lesson plans and meetings and things like that, and also time for you to just take care of yourself. Times to take a break and step away from the classroom, time to have lunch. So those things are really important. So you have to make sure that that's all scheduled in there. It's very easy to lose that if you don't. Paraprofessionals in Montana. Here's the guide. Section 11 is documenting and billing for Medicaid. So DPHHS has some wonderful information. I printed off a few that are important. We also have a great resource at our school who's the secretary for the director of special education program in our district. She is who we go to every time we have a question. Updates in laws and policies. This will change as time goes on. For right now, it's update. But as the future plays out, I'm sure there'll be changes again, and it'll have to be updated then. School guidelines and resources. So this is a 504 checklist. This is going to be helpful when starting a new job or starting a new school position in a new school. It just kind of gives you an outline and an idea of what their special education programs look like, what the groups look like who run those. So community resources and support. So these are for the families. So we've got our psychological supports in the area. We've got the Nurturing Center, which is huge in our preschool program. They give us a lot of referrals and they have a lot of resources for families. We have Montana Head Start, which is an important part of our program. We have a lot of students who do both our preschool program and Montana Head Start, which gives them a great opportunity for some social learning with other students. And Pluck, which is another great resource for parents and families. Service directory, ongoing building. It's probably about 4 pages right now. These are people that I encountered while I was doing my IEP this year, different projects and things like that. So these are some of the people that I've come across. But there are things like the school secretary, the principal, the nurse, transportation director would be an important person in that. Special education services, so speech pathologist, OT, PT. So documents, originals and blanks. These are just some of the different documents that we use this semester. Article resources for families. This next 3 sections are probably going to become their own binder, I believe. But these are just different articles that can be shared with families. And the same for other educators. And the same for other for paraprofessionals. So then we have educational standards and assessment type summaries. We use the Patel in preschool, so this is just an overview of what the Patel is. The Wyatt 3, which our special education teacher says she prefers to use starting at 2nd grade. It does go down to preschool, but that is something that our district has. The PLS, which we use in preschool for language. That's one our school district uses. We also have the TEMA, which is a math assessment for early childhood, and the TERA, which is an assessment for early childhood. And then we go to the MELS, which is the early learning guides, which is for the preschool level. These are guidelines that and standards that we would try to meet for preschool. And then from there, kindergarten on up, we go to the Common Core standards in our district. Here's a completed sample of an ER and an IEP and other forms. So those are just completed as samples. IEP Special Educator's Guide, which is very important in writing IEPs, and it's going to be important through the process. And then criteria to meet disability category. And this just gives an idea of how to meet those categories for disabilities. And that's the end. This is all going to be important stuff as writing IEPs and 504s and doing assessments and figuring out where a student is going to be best served.